Thank you for joining us today on Black Investments Matter. I'm Antoine Anderson, and today we're going to be focusing on the 5 areas of investing that all of us need to be paying attention to close the racial wealth gap in America. First area of investing we're going to talk about today is stocks. Now, stocks are vehicles that give you a portion of the profits generated by a particular company. If you own, say, 100 shares of stock in a company and that stock pays $1 a share, so every year you would receive $100. Now, the goal, of course, is to own as many shares as possible of a company. If you own 100,000 shares of a stock that's paying $1 a share, there are a few out there that do, you are paid dividends without actually having to do anything with the stock. So that 100,000 shares you may have can pay you in the form of a stock earnings report or dividend yield of $100,000, $1 for every share. That is how you live on huge investments. If you take money you've saved up or stocked up and just consistently buy stock, you can make that money back without touching the value of the stock at all. It just goes into your portfolio. It is one of the major ways people consistently create and maintain generational wealth in America. That said, why is it that only 34% of African American households own stock? That is something that we have to focus on compared to our counterparts in the racial majority who own, 61% of their families own stock at some point in time. It is an area of concern for the U.S. Department of Treasury, and it's something that we can focus on through education. Let's talk about real estate. There are a couple of areas in real estate where African Americans are beginning to make some headway, but currently overall home ownership in the African American community is at 45%. That means 55% of African Americans rent or are homeless. That is an abysmal number. We have to do better because this is the main vehicle of passing on generational wealth to our later descendants. Now, the estate tax aside, when you leave this earth and you own nothing, you pass nothing to your families. Owning a home is a way to ensure that there is some value in what you leave behind that can impact whether or not your children and grandchildren are paying rent or are collecting it by properties that they will in turn buy for themselves. Rent out grandma's house versus sitting up in it. If you own your own home, but you have to get in the game. This is a primary way of closing that racial wealth gap in the country. Now, we live in a time right now where the average income in America is around $15 an hour, or what is that, like $24,000 a year? There are apartments, 1-bedroom apartments in Atlanta that are that much. So one person's full-time job would not be enough to pay the rent in a 1-bedroom apartment. That's what it is. That's the reality of America right now. In addition to that, home prices have reached all-time highs. We started getting the tremors early on last year, and it has metastasized into the average home price over the $300,000 mark. And in some areas, it's beginning to go down as of the time of this video, but that does not mean that it has gotten any easier to get into a home. Until that area is addressed, we're going to start to see not only more of our people fall behind in the ownership gap, but unfortunately, the situation is getting more dire. So wherever you can, please look into some home ownership options so you can get those equity values and go forward. Now let's talk about retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs. These are investment accounts that allow you to build wealth with a company match. Say you're working for a company that offers maybe a 4 to 6% contribution to what you're contributing to it out of your paycheck. The ways this investment vehicle grows is by the ability of you not having readily access to those funds unless there's a hardship. You're not able to touch it. That's a big plus. You can't go into this thing like you do a checking account and spend money off of it. Investing that money grows with whatever venture or investment fund, mutual fund that these plans offer. This is a great way to earn wealth fast off of small amounts of money at a time versus a huge down payment or a huge amount of funds deposited. Retirement accounts account for 90% of all of what we invest in as far as our future generations. The problem is, in the African American community, is that our value of those retirement accounts per individual, as according to the Social Security Administration, the value of an African American retirement account is right around $44,000. Compare that to the racial majority at $331,000. That is something that we definitely have to take notice of, and as far as catching up or shortening that wealth gap in America, this is an area that we're going to need some legislation to catch up on, because in that is the income gap, in that is the savings gap. These are factors that contribute to the fact that the value of an African American retirement account is nearly 10 times, or actually 11 times less than the racial majority in this country. Next up on the list of investing in the Black community is small businesses. This is the favorite of all of us. We love to have a boutique, a salon, a wing shop, restaurant, just anything, some tangible things that we can sell, things that we see in the community every day, things that we need and use. It could be any small business. These are vehicles where you can take a passion that you have and turn it into income, revenue, something of value. But it's from an investment standpoint, and I don't want to dissuade anyone from getting into it, because I myself am into it. I have my own LLC. I've been in business for 13 years, but have those been 13 profitable years? What you get sometimes doesn't equal the effort you put into it financially. I mean, you could love it with a passion, you could be dedicated, you could be hardworking and diligent, but it does not make it profitable or solvent. Sometimes you put in way more hours than you are getting back in dollars in return. You're not able to pay your day-to-day bills, let alone thinking about passing it on to a family member once you leave this plane, and think that they're going to maintain that vision that you have. They may not want to deal with that business. Yes, it's a way to increase generational wealth if it is successful, but if it is not, it is just simply a lot of hard work. Do not take my words as a definite no on this, because I still have a dream. I still have a goal to make sure that there are computers on the desk for everybody that I come in contact with, and they have adequate tech support. That's my business. But does that mean I need to be out there every day? You have to dedicate time, and that is something that we do not have in large supply, none of us. So keep that in mind as you explore that avenue and growing generational wealth for your family. Last but not least, we're going to talk about savings, and we're only going to talk about it briefly because, quite frankly, traditional savings is not an investment vehicle that you should have. You can earn as much money as you want. You can put as much money away as possible. If you are still able to find areas where you can gain compound interest by depositing and saving all the money you can. There are so many fees attached to a savings account right now in most banks that it is nearly impossible to eke out any kind of return. Um, there are restrictions placed on how much you can withdraw of your own money. There are problems now with trying to generate that wealth, and across the board, despite racial demographics, savings at an all-time low because there just isn't enough money after you pay your bills to save. So I'm only mentioning savings as that was a way to save or to gain wealth in the past. It just isn't effective right now. If you like this video, please go ahead and like and subscribe it, and leave some comments below whether you like my editorials or not. Thank you for joining us. I'll talk to you soon.